Hey, my friends. Welcome back to KaeLynn Reflects. This is where I take time to sit with life, talk through what it is teaching me, and remind myself that we have to speak life into ourselves. If we don't, who will? One reflection at a time. So today, I want to talk about one simple question, and that's what if it all works out? And I know that may sound like one of those questions people ask when they're trying to make you feel better, but I really want us to sit with it. What if it all works out? Because if we're being honest, most of us have spent a lot of time thinking about what could go wrong. We think about what happens if they say no. What happens if the money doesn't come through? What happens if we put ourselves out there and nobody responds? What happens if we make change and then we regret it? What happens if we try again and it still doesn't work? But are we really looking at every possibility? If every possibility we consider is something going wrong, what about the possibility that the answer is yes? What about the possibility that the right person sees what we've been building? What about the possibility that the opportunity comes through, the plan starts making sense, and the thing we've been working towards begins to come together? Why is that outcome so much harder for us to imagine? I think sometimes disappointment teaches us not to get too excited. We've believed in something before and it didn't happen. We prayed for something and watched it fall apart. Some people have prayed for something for so long and watched it all fall apart. Made plans that never left the planning stages. We've trusted people who didn't do what they said they were going to do. We've gotten our hopes up, only to find ourselves trying to recover from another letdown. So now, we're trying to protect ourselves from expecting less. We don't want to celebrate too soon. We don't want to say anything until it's official. We don't want to let ourselves believe in the good outcome because we think it'll hurt less if we never fully hoped it would happen. And I understand that. Sometimes hope feels dangerous, but expecting the worst doesn't always protect us from disappointment. Sometimes it just makes us experience disappointment before anything ever happened. We suffer through the bad outcomes in our mind. We believe the rejection before we receive an answer. We feel the embarrassment before we even have tried. We imagine losing something we haven't been given a chance to even hold yet. Then, if something really goes wrong, we expect it all over again. And that's a cycle. We think worrying is helping us prepare, but sometimes it only makes us live through pain that may never come. How many good moments have we really missed because our minds were already looking for the problem? How many times did something begin to work, but we couldn't enjoy it because we were waiting for it to stop? How many times did somebody show us love, but we kept searching for the moment they would change? How many opportunities did we talk ourselves out of because we decided how they would end before we ever gave them a chance to begin? How many dreams have we kept small because imagining more made us feel exposed or uncomfortable? We can become so used to bracing ourselves that peace starts to feel unfamiliar. We can become so used to struggle that when something comes easy, we question it. When somebody shows up for us, we wonder, what are they really? When something good happens, instead of enjoying it, we start thinking about how long it's going to last. Even when life gives us a reason to breathe, we're still holding our breath. That isn't because we don't want good things. Sometimes it's because we've learned how to survive difficult things better than we've learned how to receive good ones. Survival teaches us to watch closely. It teaches us to look for what could change, what could fall apart, and what we may need to handle next. That awareness may have helped us through some seasons or some very real moments, but we have to know it's no longer protecting us. We have to recognize when being prepared has turned into no to feel safe. We have to notice when caution has turned into fear, making every decision. Because fear can sound very responsible. It can tell us to wait until we know more, wait until we have money, wait until there's no chance of failure, and wait until we're sure nobody will judge us. And while some situations do require more than time and a thought, there are other times where fear keeps moving and starting the line. Every time we get close, it gives us another reason we shouldn't move yet. We say we're waiting for the right moment, but sometimes we're waiting for the moment we won't feel afraid. And that moment may never come. Maybe courage isn't being certain that everything will happen exactly the way we want it to. Maybe courage is allowing ourselves to move while admitting that we don't know. Maybe it's saying, this can be difficult, but it could also become something beautiful. This might require more from me than I expect, but I may be more prepared than I realized. I might hear no, but I could also hear yes. I may have to adjust the plan, but that doesn't mean the whole thing is over. Because when I ask, what if it all works out? I'm not saying we can control every outcome with positive thoughts. I'm not saying that if we believe hard enough, nothing painful will ever happen. Life doesn't work like that. People still make their own choices, plans still change, some doors won't open, some things we deeply want may not be right for us, even when we can't understand why at the time. And sometimes working out doesn't look anything like the picture we created in our minds. That's important too. Maybe it's all working out doesn't mean you get that exact opportunity. Maybe it means that opportunity leads you towards one that actually fits you. Maybe the relationship doesn't come back together, but you finally come back together within yourself. Maybe the business idea changes. Maybe the timeline changes. Maybe you have to begin again with more knowledge than you had the first time. And maybe what works out is not the plan itself, but it's the person you become while learning how to keep going. Sometimes the things that work out is the things we thought was ruining everything. We look back and realize the delay gave us time we needed. The rejection kept us from settling. The ending made room for a beginning we couldn't even see yet. The change forced us to discover parts of ourselves we never would have reached if everything stayed comfortable. That doesn't mean we have to call every painful experience a blissed moment while we're still hurting. We don't have to pretend loss feels good because something meaningful might eventually grow from it. But we can leave room for the possibility that this moment isn't the whole story. We can remind ourselves that we don't know everything this season is making room for. We can stop treating uncertainty like proof that something bad is coming, because uncertainty can also mean something good is still possible. That's the part I want us to remember. If the outcome hasn't happened yet, fear doesn't get to decide that it will be bad. If we don't know what's coming next, worry doesn't automatically know either. Fear can make a prediction, but that doesn't make the prediction true. And if my mind is going to imagine an outcome, why can't I give a good outcome some room too? Why can't I imagine opening that email and seeing the answer I hoped for? Why can't I imagine people connecting with what I created? Why can't I believe that the work I've been doing quietly may eventually be seen? Why can't I imagine having enough? And why can't I see myself becoming more confident, more disciplined, and more comfortable with the woman I'm becoming? Why does every future version of my life have to be built around something I'm afraid of? Maybe hope deserves some of my imagination too. Not because hope guarantees the result, but because I deserve more than fear while I'm waiting. I deserve to be present for the possibility. I deserve to enjoy the beginning without demanding proof of the ending. I deserve to take one good moment as a good moment instead of searching for signs of trouble. And maybe you do too. Maybe there's something in your life that you're afraid to believe in. You're doing the work, but part of you is preparing for it not to matter. You're building something, but you keep telling yourself nobody cares. You want to make a change, but you're more connected to everything that could go wrong than to what could improve. You receive good news, but you still haven't allowed yourself to celebrate because there are still a few things that need to happen. You're waiting on an answer and have already written the rejection in your mind. What if you paused that story, not to replace it with a promise you can't make, but to admit you don't know yet? What if instead of saying, this probably won't work, so you say, let me see what happens? What if instead of saying, this probably won't work, instead you say, let me see what could happen? What if you let the opportunity introduce itself before fear tells you what it is? What if you stopped requiring every dream to explain exactly how it will happen before you take the first step? We don't always need the whole path. Sometimes we just need enough trust to take the next step. Send that email, fill out that application, post that video, make an appointment, start saving what you can, have the conversation, return to the plan. Try again without making yourself feel ashamed that you have to try again. Let today's step belong to today. Then, when tomorrow gets here, we can meet whatever belongs to tomorrow. One of the ways fear overwhelms us is by making us carry the entire future at one time. We're trying to solve problems that haven't even happened. We're preparing responses to conversations nobody has started. We're worried about how we're going to maintain something we haven't received. We're thinking 10 steps ahead while the first step is still sitting in front of us. But what if everything doesn't have to be figured out today for things to eventually work out? What if help shows up along the way? What if you learn what you need to know when you get there? What if the version of you who reaches that next level will have more experience, more knowledge, and a different way of seeing things than the version of you trying to figure it all out right now? You may be expecting today's version of you to have answers that can only come from living through what happens next. Give yourself room to learn. Give the plan room to grow. Give life room to surprise you, and give yourself permission to be excited again. I think some of us have been disappointed so many times that we've started treating excitement like something childish. We try to stay calm. We tell ourselves not to do too much. We make the good news smaller before anybody else gets a chance to. But being excited doesn't mean we're foolish or childish. Hope doesn't mean we've stopped paying attention. Believing something good could happen doesn't make us unprepared for real life. It just means life is allowed to hold more than struggle. We're allowed to imagine ease. We're allowed to imagine being met with love. We're allowed to imagine the right people finding us. We're allowed to imagine ourselves. We're allowed to imagine our work producing something good. We're allowed to believe that every season won't require us to fight the way previous seasons did. And when that feels hard to believe, maybe we start smaller. Maybe today works out. Maybe this conversation goes better than expected. Maybe we finish the thing we've been avoiding. Maybe we receive one piece of good news. Maybe we get through the day without creating a problem inside of our quiet moment. Maybe something makes us laugh. Maybe we feel lighter. Maybe we notice that life is already working in small ways we've been too worried to see. Because sometimes we're waiting for one huge sign that everything is coming together while overlooking all the little ways it already is. We handled something differently. We said no. We kept going after something didn't work. We rested before our bodies had to force us to stop. We asked for help. We started listening to ourselves. We made one better choice. Those things count too. Working out isn't always one big moment when every problem disappears. Sometimes it looks like slowly becoming someone who trusts herself to face what's coming. And maybe that's the hope underneath this question. Not just what if nothing goes wrong, but what if I'm okay even when the plan changes? What if I can trust myself to make another decision, And what if I don't have to know the ending before I believe I'm capable of meeting it? What if I already survived? I don't have to be afraid of every unknown. I've figured things out. I've made something out of a situation that didn't look promising. I've gotten through days I didn't feel prepared for. So maybe I don't have to use all of that strength. Only imagine surviving another disaster. Maybe I can use some of it to build something good. Maybe I can trust myself enough to hope. Maybe I can speak life into the future without trying to control every detail of it. I don't know exactly how this will happen, but I'm willing to believe something good can come from it. This isn't about sitting still and hoping everything magically falls into place. Sometimes things work out because we finally do the thing we've been avoiding. We prepare, we ask questions, we learn, we make the call, we become more consistent. We stop trying to force a plan that isn't working and give ourselves permission to adjust it. Hope still needs our participation. We can believe in a good outcome and take responsibility for that part that belongs to us. We can speak life and still tell ourselves the truth. We can believe it will all work out, understanding that we have some work to do along the way. Those things can exist together. So when fear starts giving you every reason it won't happen, ask it a different question. But what if it does? What if it works out? What if the work pays off? What if the next chapter of your life holds something you couldn't have planned because you didn't even know it was possible? What if you don't have to fight so hard for every good thing? What if this season teaches you how to receive? What if years from now you look back at the version of yourself and wish she could have seen what was coming? I don't want fear to be the one voice speaking into my future. Fear has had enough time. It has made enough predictions. It has taken enough moments that could have held peace and filled them with things that never happened. So now I want to make room for another possibility. I want to make room for something to go right. I want to make room for help, growth, love, timing, redirection, and unexpected opportunity. I want to make room for my life to become bigger than the outcomes I've been afraid of. I may not know exactly what's coming, but fear doesn't know either. And until the answer arrives, I'm allowed to hope. I'm allowed to prepare for something good. I'm allowed to keep moving. I'm allowed to believe that even if everything doesn't happen exactly the way I pictured it, my story can still unfold in a way that is good for me. What if you look back and realize you were never being asked to have the whole future figured out? You were only being asked not to let fear stop you from meeting it. All right, friends, that's where I'm going to leave this reflection today. Take what you need from it. Sit with whatever came up for you and remember to speak life into yourself. You deserve to hear good things from your own voice too. Until next time, take care of yourself.